The blue lights hit the water first. Then the deputy's hand hovered over his holster while Victoria Hargrove shrieked that we were trespassing on her lake. My 79-year-old mother, deep in her Alzheimer's fog, started crying because she thought they were finally arresting her for the Butterfinger she forgot to pay for in 1974. What kind of monster calls armed police on a confused grandma just for sitting in the same folding chair her own father helped drag to the shoreline 60 years ago? Oakwood Grove looked like the American dream on the surface: neat lawns, kids on bikes, that soft North Carolina light filtering through the pines. But underneath, a suffocating web of rules enforced by people who'd weaponized a clipboard. I'm Ryan Callahan, 47. Former line mechanic. Freshly laid off when the dealership replaced half the shop with diagnostic software. I'd moved back into my childhood ranch house to take care of Mom after her diagnosis turned from mild forgetfulness to full-blown Alzheimer's. Pride? That died the day I found her trying to make coffee with motor oil. The neighborhood had changed since I was a kid. New money from up north had rolled in. And with it came Victoria Hargrove, 65. Fresh off a controversial HOA exit in a Connecticut enclave. Botox so tight her smile looked like it was filed down by a lawyer. Within 6 months she'd staged a quiet coup and crowned herself president. Her mission statement sounded noble: preserve property values and community standards. Translation: price out anyone who didn't summer in the Hamptons. I'd already been enemy number one for months. Last year I politely asked the board to do something about the leaf blowers starting at 6 a.m. on Sundays. Victoria responded by anonymously circulating a petition claiming I was an angry drunk who neglected his mother. The rumors spread like cheap fertilizer. Neighbors who used to wave now crossed the street. I kept my mouth shut, smiled, and watched. Because when you've been framed as the neighborhood villain, the best revenge is letting them think they've won, right up until they haven't. That October morning started peaceful. Mist rising off the lake like ghosts of better days. Mom was having one of her clearer spells, humming old hymns while I baited her hook with a nightcrawler. Same spot her daddy, my grandpa Earl, used to fish after he spent 18-hour shifts carving this reservoir out of red Carolina clay in 1964. The original developers had written lifetime access into the deeds for every worker. A covenant in faded yellow paper. Family lore said Grandpa Earl even got a small equity stake for being crew chief. Then came the click-clack of designer heels on the dock boards. Excuse me. This is private property. Victoria materialized in head-to-toe Lululemon that cost more than my truck payment. Laminated HOA bylaws clutched like the 10 Commandments. Silver hair helmeted against the humidity. Lips pursed so tight they could cut glass. I didn't even look up. Morning, Mrs. Hargrove. We've been fishing this exact spot since before your Pilates instructor was born. Her laugh was pure ice. That ends today. The board passed a new lake access policy, unanimously. I might add. Annual enhancement fee is now $750 per person. Cash or check? Today. She looked at my mother the way people look at stains on carpet. Mom just smiled vaguely and asked if the fish were biting. I felt the old rage bubble. But I kept my voice even. My grandfather helped build this lake. The original deeds say we have permanent access. Those are outdated, she snapped. Already typing on her phone. Current covenants supersede. Pay or leave. Mr. Callahan. And I'd appreciate it if you stopped spreading lies about board decisions. Some of us are trying to maintain standards. She spun on her heel and left. 10 minutes later, 2 sheriff's deputies rolled up because Victoria had reported aggressive trespassers harassing the community. One deputy actually recognized Mom from the old days and looked embarrassed. The other still made us pack up while Victoria watched from her Mercedes. smug as a cat with a mouthful of feathers. That was the spark. But the fire had been building for years. The next morning I woke to an official violation notice duct taped to my front door so hard it took paint with it. $500 fine. $100 a day until compliance. The same door my dad painted the summer before his heart attack. I stood there in my boxers, staring at that torn paint. And something inside me finally snapped, not loud, but cold and clear. I spent the day in the garage going through Dad's old files. The smell of mothballs and 10W30 hit like a time machine. Buried in a folder marked important, do not throw away, was the 1964 equity certificate. Grandpa Earl owned 4% of Oakwood Development LLC, the company that still technically held the lake bed and water rights. The HOA only managed the surrounding land. The lake itself had never been properly transferred. I made copies at the library. The librarian, Mrs. Alvarez, leaned in and whispered, "That woman tried to ban our local history books last month. You give her hell, Ryan." That night's HOA meeting was standing room only. Victoria sat at the head table like a queen holding court, flanked by nervous board members who looked ready to bolt. "Mr. Callahan," she purred into the mic, loud enough for the cheap speakers to distort. "Have you come to pay your fines and apologize for the disruption?" I held up the documents. "Actually, I came to remind everyone that my family owns part of the company that owns the lake. You can't fine me for using something I partially own." The room went dead quiet. Victoria's Botox betrayed her, her left eye twitched like a broken windshield wiper. She recovered fast. "Those documents are ancient and irrelevant. The HOA covenants supersede any prior corporate nonsense." One of the older board members, Dolores Ramirez, cleared her throat. "Property rights don't expire just because you want a new gate, Vicky." Victoria slammed the gavel so hard the sound block cracked. "Motion to uphold the fine passes. New business, we're installing a coded security gate at the lake entrance next week. For safety." Of course. The room erupted. Fire trucks couldn't get through. Kids on bikes. Old folks who used the path for exercise. Victoria just smiled that frozen smile and declared the meeting adjourned. But she'd made her first real mistake. In her rush to lock everyone out, she'd blocked the only emergency access road. The fire chief pulled me aside the next day at the gas station. "Your HOA president just created a death trap. That gate comes down or somebody dies. I'm filing today." I started making calls to the other problem families, the ones Victoria had slandered, fined into submission, or forced to sell. Turns out I wasn't the only one she'd painted as trash. The pattern was identical: new ridiculous fee, violation notice, rumors about declining neighborhood character, then a quiet cash offer from a shell company called OG Holdings to buy the house cheap. OG. Oakwood Grove. Cute. By the time the gate went up, 10 feet of brushed steel and blinking red cameras, Dolores had given me a list of 12 other founding families. We met in her kitchen over sweet tea and righteous anger. Keith, her tech was grandson, pulled public records on his laptop and whistled low. Victoria Hargrove is OG Holdings. She's done this in 4 states. Force the fees. Spread the rumors. Buy low. Flip high. She's stolen almost $9 million. I smiled for the first time in months. Then let's steal it back. We spent weeks building the case, quietly, patiently. Old share certificates surfaced from attics and safe deposit boxes. Together the founding families controlled 42% of the still active Oakwood Development LLC. Enough to force a shareholder meeting and challenge the fraudulent transfer. Victoria smelled blood in the water and escalated. Dead fish on doorsteps. Slashed tires. Anonymous flyers claiming I was under investigation for elder abuse. She even tried to have Mom declared incompetent so she could protect the property. Every dirty trick in the book. I recorded every call. Documented every threat. And waited. The Fall Community Festival by the lake was the perfect stage, whole neighborhood. Local news. Cameras everywhere. Victoria arrived in a white designer pantsuit and pearls. Playing benevolent queen while her 2 rented security goons glared at anyone who looked poor. At 11:15 a.m. the process server walked straight through the crowd like she owned the place. Victoria saw her coming and tried to smile. But her face cracked. "Mrs. Hargrove. You've been served." The papers hit her hands just as 2 FBI agents in windbreakers started crossing the grass. Phones came out. The crowd formed a natural circle. Victoria's voice went shrill. "This is harassment. I've done nothing but protect this community." I stepped up to the mic the news crew handed me. "You called the cops on my mother for fishing where her father helped dig the lake. You spread lies about me being a drunk and an abuser. You blocked emergency access so you could install your little kingdom gate. And you did it all while secretly buying up houses through a shell company you control." Keith held up his laptop. "We have the emails. The financials. The pattern in 4 states. Racketeering. Fraud. The works." Dolores stepped forward. All 5 feet of her radiating fury. "You told me my grandbaby's birthday party might attract the wrong element. My grandbaby. Vicky. 3 years old." The crowd started chanting. Someone yelled, "Karma's a bitch." Victoria's security quietly melted into the background. Agent Chin from the FBI approached with the warrant. "Victoria Hargrove. You're under arrest for interstate wire fraud, racketeering, and making terroristic threats against a vulnerable adult." Victoria's face went from spray tan orange to corpse white. "You can't, my lawyers. Your nephew's already disbarred in 2 states, I said calmly. And North Carolina makes 3 as of this morning." She started screaming about judges she owned. Connections. How she'd bury us. The phone in my pocket caught every word. When she threatened to have Mom wander off and have an accident, the crowd actually gasped. The FBI put her in cuffs right there by the lake she tried to steal. Her designer suit looked ridiculous against the patrol car. Her nephew tried to run and tripped straight into the mud, right at the spot where my grandpa used to stand in hip waders. 6 months later the lake belongs to the community again. The gate is gone. Melted down into a memorial bench with every founding family's name on it. Victoria got 12 years federal time. Her mansion, seized as proceeds of crime, became the new Earl Callahan Community Center. Her marble kitchen now hosts free legal clinics for people fighting their own HOAs. Her pool house is a computer lab where Keith teaches seniors how to spot scams. I still take Mom fishing every Sunday she's lucid enough. She doesn't always remember my name. But she always remembers the lake. "Daddy built that," she'll say, pointing at the water with a shaky finger. "Nobody can take it from us." She's right. They tried. They failed spectacularly. And every time I walk past that bench, I smile a little. Because the woman who tried to destroy us with rules ended up destroyed by the very system she thought she owned. So tell me in the comments, was Victoria Hargrove just a dedicated HOA president protecting property values, or was she exactly the kind of entitled tyrant who deserves everything she got? Would you have stayed silent like I did at first? Or would you have gone nuclear sooner? Drop your own HOA horror stories below. Let's keep this conversation going.